I am really excited to be here with you this morning. I know many of you know Mary and I. Mary and I have been together for 48 years. We've been here in Georgia since 1986, if you ask me, 1987 if you ask Mary. See, I came in 86. She didn't get here till 87. Mary was the first girl I ever spent the night with. And before you go off down a wrong trail, I spent the night with Mary on the day that I was born. When I was born in 1952, they laid little Jimmy Pace right next to Mary Wilson, and that's a true story. I'm often asked on the trail, why do you want to do this? And I tell you all the truth, I don't want to do this. We've got a nice mountain cabin in Tennessee, and I'd much rather go to the mountain cabin with Mary. But I feel like while I don't need the commute, I don't need the title, I need to be able to look my grandchildren in the eye and say I did what I could to keep you safe, to restore America to the great nation it once was. And so we're going to Washington, D.C., I believe, and we're going to take that sentiment with us. I did not intend to run for this race. When Len Westmoreland announced he wasn't going to rerun Matt, I remember saying to Mary, I wonder who'll do that. And so here I stand before you as one of those who's contending for the position. I believe that you need to know just a little bit about me. I've been in economic development my entire business career, 27 of those years here in this area. Did many developments, some in Coweta County, but Mary and I have lifelong Republican. I didn't realize the Republican Party had gotten so fractured until we were down in LaGrange and we were asked to define ourselves. Are you a constitutional Republican, a Tea Party Republican, or a traditional Republican? And if I asked this group, I don't know how you would answer that question, but I'll tell you this. I said, well, I started off traditional Republican because that's all there was. You know, back in 1960 when Nixon ran against Kennedy, that's what I was, a traditional Republican, and we didn't know any difference. Today, I would say to you I'm a constitutional Republican, a high-tech constitutional Republican. Some people carry the little red book around in their coat pocket. I've got it on my iPhone. It's just easier. You can search it. I believe in the 10th Amendment. Mike touched on the 10th Amendment. 10th Amendment's one of the things that I'm going to spend a lot of my time on. If you don't know what the 10th Amendment is, it's the one that says the powers that are not specifically designated to the federal government are reserved to the states and to the people. We've gotten a lot of stuff, guys, that's crept into our country, and you talked about taking the money away. Guess what? The federal government was never asked to be involved in education in the first place. How in the heck can they take money away that they were never supposed to be passing out? So one of the big things I'd like to see us do is get rid of the Department of Education at the federal level, bring it back to the schools. You know, I've got 8 grandkids, homeschooled. They're all homeschooled because you can't trust the other because of the interference we're getting from the national level. If the local elected officials for the public school system, what we call the school board, were allowed to rule and reign in our county, we would be in great shape. We've got great teachers, we've got great elected school superintendents and so forth, but the government's messing with us through a right that they do not have. For every law that Congress passes, there are 60 rules and regulations, maybe a few more, that impact upon us by bureaucratic agencies. If I get my way in Washington, we're going to get rid of the IRS altogether. We never intended to have them. So get rid of the IRS, get rid of the Board of Education, get out of the insurance business. Good gracious. You know, whoever thought we would be meddling in insurance and health care? That's not part of what the government was charged to do, but what they were charged to do, they're doing poorly. They're spending all their time off on these crazy adjunct programs, and they're not keeping us safe. They're not closing the borders. And listen, I talked to Bob Patterson, who is general in charge of Air Force Special Ops. I had lunch with him last week. He said, we have the technology right now to close the borders all the way around. It's not about Mexico, guys. We need those workers to harvest the blueberries that are rotting on the blueberry bushes in South Florida. It's about the other stuff. And so my heart is we don't have the will. We don't have the will to do what's right. And so when we go to Washington, we're going to have the will to do what's right. I'm going to close, Brant, with a story, and hopefully I can do it within that minute. The Philistines and Israel and Judah were sitting on the opposite side of a valley, and there was nothing happening. For 40 days, nothing happened. Y'all remember this story? Okay? It wasn't a politician that showed up. It wasn't a new general. It wasn't a new warrior. It was a shepherd boy named David. And on that day, he walked across that field, and this is what he said. He said, "You come at me with the weapons of this world, but I come at you with the power of the Lord God Almighty. And this day you will lay dead on the field, and this day I will have your head." And guess what happened? Exactly that. The shepherd boy goes from being a shepherd boy to a king, to a leader, a most unlikely candidate who showed up that day. But I maintain that if we go to Washington, D.C. with the same power inside of us, see, it wasn't about David. It was about the power that was within David. If we go with that same power, we can have the same end result. God bless you all.